Okay, I want to share something that I see coming up a lot in the lives of high achieving women, especially the ones who look like they have it all together, who look like they're at the forefront of perfection. And it shows up in the smallest moments inside their relationships and often reveals more than the big things ever could. That's what I want to unpack during this live. I've worked with women whose relationships look fine on the outside, and honestly, most of the time, they are. But when we talk through the day to day, the same pattern keeps coming up. She's initiating hard conversations, she's noticing the shifts in the room, she's typically checking in first. She's hyper vigilant and focused on steadying the energy in the room and maintaining the moods, basically making sure that everything stays okay. Not necessarily because she wants to, but this is one of the remnants, I'll say, of years and years of being the responsible one. Responsible at work, responsible as a child growing up, as a young woman, young daughter, friendships, family, relationships, trained to step in before anything goes awry. It's like a patterned response. Something happens, I respond. There's a predictability to the response based on what happens, based on the fact that something happens, period. There's a response, there's a reaction, there's a response. There's a reaction or an action, excuse me, and then there's a response. You get the point. And I want to just emphasize that this conditioning, this pattern response, should not be mistaken for a personal flaw. It has nothing to do with you, the individual. It's a conditioning, because the way you are in one thing is the way you are everywhere. So that responsibility that has earned you a lot of success professionally, earned you that corner office, multi six-figure family salary, a home, and all those things, is also what is keeping you in this reactive mood or mode of being, of operating. And eventually, when this continues to happen, thoughts start to form. But one of the most compelling thoughts or lingering thought is, why am I doing the most in this? Why am I the one doing most of this emotional lifting, this emotional work? Because the truth is that this doesn't get talked about enough. For some reason, there's a lot of backpedaling and pussyfooting around the fact that 90% of relationships that high achieving Black women are in, maybe even women, are emotionally carried by the woman. And one of the things that I want to emphasize, another thing that I want to emphasize is that trying harder does not fix that a relationship has quietly become a one woman show. This is what we're not wanting to talk about. It's not efforting. Efforting doesn't create partnerships. Being patient doesn't create the closeness or the connection that you desire or seek. And having just carrying that burden, that labor, will not bring you closer. Okay? Because being in a relationship requires more than one person, and one person cannot create intimacy. You cannot communicate for two people, unfortunately, or fortunately, and you can't seriously hold the emotional center without support. And alas, many women, by virtue of being high functioning, never slow down or rarely slow down. I don't want to say never. Absolutes always scare me. Rarely slow down enough to notice, to observe that the relationship itself is not the issue often enough. What makes it laborious emotionally is the instinct that you have to keep piecing everything together, holding it together, to keep maintain that hypervigilance, to brace yourself that something's going to go wrong and something is going to not be the way I want it to be. And so you're always in that constant, or you're mostly in that constant state of, So when you finally pause, it's not because you're angry, or it's not because you have anything going on, like really turbulent or anything. It's just when you start to see yourself, or see when you start seeing, excuse me, losing my train of thought. When you start seeing the relationship without the extra weight you've been carrying. And it's the moment, I like to say, the moment of clarity, the first real look at how things have been that you've likely had in a long, long time. So, as I round up, consider this. What would your relationship look like if you weren't the one holding the emotional weight, the emotional burden? If you weren't holding it as a test or a threat or punishment, no games, no manipulation here, just honestly, what would it look like if you weren't bracing for when the mood changes to bring you back up, when there's a downside to stuff to lift it up, when life is lifing to, what would it look like? I want you to do that simply as a way to see when the relationship is, when you're not automatically where it is, when you're not automatically stepping into the role that you've been trained and that you've even assumed in some cases to play. Ask yourself, think about it. Because every time you give yourself permission to pause, to think, to hear yourself, you see things clearly, and you don't have or you free yourself of the instinct to fix, smooth, or manage. And if you keep doing this periodically, or if you at least do this now, it could become the turning point towards a relationship that you desire, where you're met and where you're not always managing things. So I'm going to round up by inviting you, if this resonated with you in any way, shape, or form, if you've seen yourself being the emotional carrier for so long that you don't know any other way to operate, there is a way. And I'm going to share with you, unpack with you on December 27th during my Soft Life Shift Masterclass. It's at 6 p.m. Eastern. You will get to see why overfunctioning shows up in love, and how it shows up, and how you can stop carrying the emotional responsibility by yourself and still have a relationship that meets your needs. The link is in the description, and I look forward to seeing you. But before then, I'll see you in the next live.